It's been too long, Clemson family. Let's talk a little football. We'll do a way too early preview at that of Clemson and Georgia now that both teams have completed their spring games. There's a few other things going on around campus as well.
I'm Daniel Shirley. Yeah, we're going to talk football, baseball, basketball, a little bit of everything on this episode.
Yep, I'm Bill Zimmerman. This is the Reign Supreme Alway podcast. We're around, I don't know, episode 103, 4, something like that, somewhere in there. We got more than 100 of these under our belt. We're still trying to figure a few things out. As you can see, ClemsonKickoff.com. You can check out our website, YouTube.com/Clemson Kickoff. All our previous episodes. The last one was actually before the Elite Eight loss, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
So we'll get into a little bit of where men's basketball is headed this offseason. Change on the women's basketball team as well. So a lot of upheaval on the hard court. And then a key injury. Why don't we knock this out real quick? Key injury for Clemson baseball: shortstop Andrew Ciufo out for the year, as had been expected. It was officially announced yesterday as we record this. We are recording this on Thursday the 18th. And the Tigers have shown that they miss him a little bit. Like maybe Canarella is the better all-around player or more crucial all-around player to what they do. Overtop's been a heck of a power hitter. They've got talent up and down that lineup, but they've really had to adjust to Ciufo's injury, and it has dropped them in the rankings a little bit as they've lost a few games without him.
Yeah, they doubled up their losses of the whole season in 1 week, right? And that was unfortunate when they lost 2 to NC State, they lost 1 to USC Upstate. So that was a tough week. And Bill, it was just how they played, just sloppy errors, base running mistakes, guys getting picked off first base, guys getting thrown out at the plate, getting thrown out at third when there's no reason to be thrown out at third. So it was just sloppy. And I tweeted out that this team is in a funk a little bit, and I had people jumping all over me on Twitter, and I had a couple of people jumping on me on Facebook. I put the same thing there. And then Eric Bakich came out and pretty much said, we're in a funk. He didn't say the word funk, but he said, we're going through some stuff right now. And they were. And look, they've had a great year. All the latest bracketology quote for baseball have them as a number, a top 8 seed. So it's not like they're falling off the face of the earth, but if you continue to play the way they've played, you're not going to be the team that you can be. And that's sloppy defense. It's not timely hitting. We've seen the kind of clutch hitting has dropped off as well. And Ciufo's a big part of that. He's such a good defensive player that you've had to move guys around and try to find the right pieces. And we'll see if they kind of settle in now that they've been doing it for a couple of weeks. But that was a big loss for sure. And, he's the best defensive player on the team. And you don't just snap your fingers and say, okay, we're the same team without him.
Yep. They'll play Pitt this weekend, and we will see how that goes. We will review it afterward, talk a little bit about it the next time we get together here. Follow us on Twitter in the meantime, at Clemson Kickoff, and a lot of times I'm on there reacting to things in real time. Sometimes Daniel's on there as well. You can follow us there and get a few updates between the episodes. Easy for me to say. Well, let's go ahead and talk.
You can tell when I'm on Twitter responding to stuff. So let's just say that.
Yeah,
it's way more critical and crazy than when Bill's running it.
And if I say something really heavy duty, critical, and crazy, and I'm worried about your standing with your job, I'll throw my initials on there so that you can point. You can tell the boss, no, that's that other guy, man. That ain't me.
He's crazier than I am. I don't know what you're talking about.
Right. So let's talk about a crazy Clemson spring game, shall we? I mean, there was all kind of stuff going on the field. What we didn't see yet was Peter Woods at defensive end. We didn't see Barrett Carter playing alongside Wade Wood as a starting linebacker duo. We didn't get to see R.J. Mickens back there in the backfield. We didn't get to see Phil Maffa as a bell cow. I mean, we've seen that at Notre Dame, and I've got a lot of confidence in what he's going to be able to do this year as a lead running back. Something looked the same though that you and I were talking about before this, and until you dropped a a choice word or two, I was thinking about actually just grabbing that conversation and dropping it in here. Cade Klubnik with more questionable decision making, more lack of awareness in the backfield, shall we say. You and I have talked about that in the past. He just doesn't have, some people call it pocket presence. Some people just call it, field awareness, not staying focused downfield. He doesn't get rid of the ball quickly enough for my taste, and I was hoping to see that in a more controlled environment than a real game. And it's worrisome. And look, I know they got all fall camp to go, and I know he's the unquestioned starter. So I'm not jumping on the pyramid of y'all bus or anything at this point, but Klubnik's still got some work to do, and if he can't do it in that controlled environment, I wonder what are they going to be able to teach him in fall camp that he will be able to do that on the field against Georgia first week of the year?
A couple things. You're not playing, and no offense to these teams, Georgia State, Georgia Southern, Georgia Tech, in the opener. You're playing Georgia,
Yeah.
maybe the favorite to win the national title. Their defense looked fast and physical in their spring game. So you can't make the mistakes that he's made in key moments in his career. No, look, where's the Cade Klubnik who played against UNC in the ACC championship game? Got
Yep.
the ball out of his hands, looked decisive. That's what you need to see from him. Even the Florida State game where he played Bill really well for what, 3/4, and then the big sack that we all know of, that you have to be able to feel that coming or see it. It's right in front of you coming.
Yeah.
It's not your blind side. So, even in the Kentucky game last year, in the bowl game, I know the beautiful drive at the end, they win the game. It was a great win, all that stuff. 2 drives before that, he's got a guy wide open and running the slant, and he double pumps, and he waits a click too long, throws it, gets picked up in the end zone.
Yeah.
Right. Then he gets hit because he's holding the ball too long and fumbles. Now he recovered that one, and Clemson kicked a field goal. But Dabo Swinney said it during I've seen some interviews since the spring game. One on the ACC PM show with Mark Packer. There's too many fumbles, right? He didn't throw that many picks last year, but too many fumbles, and you've got to get the ball out of your hands quicker, more decisively, faster, whatever you want to say it, however you want to say it, especially when you're playing a team like Georgia. That stuff's not going to work against Georgia. You're going to get beat, and you might get beat bad if he makes the kind of mistakes he's made in the past. Now, that said, I feel pretty good that he's going to take a step forward. I just feel like he's going to make the improvements between now and August to be ready for the game. I don't put much stock in a spring game. I watch the game, but come on, what are we watching? What are we looking at?
Right.
Look how many receivers were out. It's what are we trying to accomplish? What are they trying to run? What's the defense trying to do? We don't know any of that stuff. Right. And if I don't want to offend anybody who's watching, but if you think Trent Pearman should be the starter, which is what we've heard from a lot of people the last 2 weeks, you're just wrong. I'm not going to call you names or say some things that I could say, but you're just absolutely wrong. He should not be the starter. And I mean, Cade Klubnik's the clear starter, and you've got to get him ready and build your offense around his strengths. And hopefully they'll do that, throughout the season.
Yeah, I mean, look, Pearman looked very natural out there. And what I always talk about in spring games is look for the player traits, right? Like, don't try to assess the system. Don't try to assess, this unit against that unit or anything. Just look for an individual player trait. And Pearman showed, that he can execute the offense despite having not the arm strength that Klubnik has, that Vizina has. By the way, Chris Vizina, still a project, but looking good. I mean, he showed some things, some bad reads, that's fine, but he's starting to get the timing down. He came from a very small high school. He definitely flashed the arm strength. He definitely flashed quick feet. And those are the kind of things you can look for in a game like this. Now he's still got to put it all together. And Pearman is probably the number 2 over Vizina, but I don't think you're looking to start Pearman anytime soon unless there's a ridiculous emergency between now and week 1 against Georgia. Now, what I did see that I liked on the other hand, Sammy Brown. How
Yeah.
much athletic talent does that guy have? And granted, I feel like on that sack to open Cade Klubnik's day, Klubnik held the ball a little long. Brown got there in a hurry though. He knew a good route. He didn't try to swing too wide and then let that get in the way of him getting to the quarterback. 8 tackles on the day, I believe. That's no fluke, right? I mean, if he's getting to the ball that way, he's got the speed. Again, you can't quite fully assess what's under the helmet. He's playing against a team, playing against an offensive unit that he has seen a lot. He knows Garrett Riley's scheme. You can kind of cheat an angle, cheat a step here or there. You pick up on tendencies when you're facing guys every day. So we don't know what it would be like if he goes out there week 1 against Carson Beck, Trevor Etienne, assuming he's not suspended for his incident, which, it's Kirby Smart. I doubt he'll be suspended for that game, right? But, you got a lot of depth that you can get to before you need Sammy Brown, but Sammy Brown could be a luxury out there to avoid Fegan, jumping a route, even though Adam Randall reportedly ran the wrong route on that pick that Fegan had. Hey, he made it happen. He took advantage of the mistake and did a nice job to pluck that ball out of the air, get a nice return on it. Those are the little things that you can kind of see. And it doesn't mean you make Pearman a starter or Fegan a starter or Brown a starter, but you see what these guys can do in kind of a makeshift lineup, so to speak, right? Like you've got the whole team split up 2 sides, plus you got some guys sitting out. Those are the kind of things you can look for and really appreciate. And let's not fail to mention Bryant Wesco, right? Oh my gosh.
Right. I think Sammy Brown and Bryant Wesco really kind of stole the show, other than probably, they did. And I would say the other group who did, or that did, was those reserve defensive ends. I thought those guys all kind of stepped up, because you go in saying, oh, well, Peter Wood's not playing. What are the defensive ends going to look like? And Hoffler and those guys played really well throughout the game. But again, well, if they look good, does that mean the tackles aren't good? That's the stuff you just don't know, and scheme and all that, like you talk about. So, but I thought that Wesco looked natural. He's got to get bigger. And you heard Dabo throughout the game kind of getting on in him about blocking.
Yep.
He's got to get stronger. But, he looks natural running routes. And look, Bill, TJ Moore's not even there yet.
Yep. That's another one.
But Sammy Brown and Bryant Wesco, they look like they hit on both of those guys. And I don't think anyone would argue against that. And we'll see. Look, Sammy Brown played here in our state in Georgia. I've watched a lot of his tape, just watching game, highlights and those things here in the state. I don't think there's any doubt he's going to be a really, really good player. But, again, is he a luxury? Like you said, you still do have Barrett Carter. You still do have Wade Woodaz. And if all 3 of those guys are on the field at the same time, I'm okay with that. And whatever that looks like. And we'll see how they use them. But no, I don't freak out about a spring game. I don't overreact to it. It's a glorified practice. How many times were there where Dabo blew a guy dead, where the quarterback would have stepped up in the pocket and maybe gotten the throw off, as opposed to it being a quote unquote sack?
Well, would he have stepped up in the pocket, or would he have run 15 yards backwards?
Well, we'll see.
Yeah.
But I do feel like, look, there is some, I don't believe in momentum from year to year, because there's too much time between games and then the next games. But I do believe in momentum from the end of the regular season, winning 4 straight, to the bowl game, then winning that game. Then there's momentum to the mat drills. And then there's momentum to spring practice. Then there's momentum to summer and leadership and all, and skills and drills and all that stuff. And then you get to practice in the game. So, look, I think this team's fine. I think it feels like to me it should be favored to win the ACC.
Yes.
If they win the ACC, they get a top 4 seed in the playoff. And then all the people who are saying, quote, Clemson is done, I think that stuff goes away. So, but I think that they can definitely go to a playoff with Cade Klubnik at quarterback. That's the way I feel about it.
Yep.
Now they've got to go do it. They haven't
Bingo.
done it, but they've got to go do it. I'm just giving you, it's an opinion. It's a projection. I've been wrong about a lot of things before. I thought DJ would take them to the playoff.
Right.
And there are other people out there who say Dabo's never done anything without an elite quarterback. Well, Kelly Bryant went to the playoff. That's just not true.
Right.
We can let facts get in the way if we want to, but it's just absolutely not true. So I just think that this team is going to be fine. I think they've got enough defense that if they just play to the defense strengths and don't turn the ball over, they can be the team that went 5-0 at the end of the season, as opposed to team that went 4-4.
Yeah, and I mean, arguably, that's the difference in the entire slew of losses last year, right? Duke turned the ball over way too many times, and at both ends of the field, but near both goal lines, right? In both red zones at the very least. Same thing against Florida State. You got the critical sack that gives up the scoop and score. If you just eat that ball or throw it away, you probably win that game. If you have, there's the kicker issue also, and the Wiggins injury at the end of the game. But maybe all that goes away if you just hold on to that ball. Miami fumbles, NC State fumbles, and just lackadaisical play. Even the end of the Notre Dame game, all right, they almost gave the ball away. So let me ask you this: with Georgia, and I know you watched some of that game, and then I know you talked to Seth Emerson, also your guy there at the Athletic who covers them, does a real great job of covering the Bulldogs. Georgia at wideout, because this is a team that loses Bowers, they lose McConkey, they lose is it Rosemary Jackson? Am I saying that right?
Right.
That's a lot of targets that really got Carson Beck through his first year as a starter. Now Carson Beck has to be the guy to be there for his new starters. And Oscar Delp, I've already seen him, make some electric plays, just backing up Bowers last year at times. But really, who are the main targets there? And with Clemson having what looks like a very good secondary coming back, is that going to help the front seven or front six in this scheme get to Beck and kind of change his day a little bit, so to speak?
Yeah, a couple of things there. You're right. Carson Beck had a lot of security blankets around him last year. And Ladd McConkey was hurt for a lot of the year but didn't play. But Brock Bowers was as good an offensive player as there was in the country last year.
Right.
So I just don't think you fill his role with one person. So who gets the Bowers catches, who gets the McConkey catches is going to be a really interesting piece of what happens for Georgia. Ra Thomas is back. Dylan Bell is a really good player. Dominic Lovett. They've got some talent. London Humphreys is transferred in from Vanderbilt. Colby Young transferred in from Miami. So they have some talent there for sure. But Bill, now you don't have to be focused on Brock Bowers to open up all those other guys. And what will Delp be? I mean, I think Delp's a fine player, but he's not Brock Bowers.
Yeah.
That's not a criticism of him. Nobody's Brock Bowers.
Right.
Brock Bowers, again, I think he was one of the 5 best offensive players in the country. Easily, to me, the best tight end. I'd love to see Clemson use Jake Brennenstuhl the way Clemson used Brock Bowers. But look, I do think that where last year, and Carson Beck, I think Carson Beck is a first-round quarterback in the NFL draft when he comes out. I think really highly of him. But now it's his team. And I know last year he was the quarterback, and the quarterback gets all the attention by a lot of people. But it really wasn't, quote-unquote, his team last year. It was Brock Bowers' team, Ladd McConkey's team, and some other guys. Now it's his team. And he's got to lead those guys as opposed to leaning on the guys who were there for him last year. And that's going to be an interesting kind of a transition for him. Is he ready for that? Again, I think talent-wise, I think he's got everything you want as a quarterback. But it's going to be interesting to see what he can do without that security blanket in Brock Bowers. And again, who gets his catches? Who gets Ladd McConkey's catches? Do they keep running some of the scheme that they ran with Brock Bowers, the end arounds, those kinds of things? Or do they throw that out of the offense if they don't have anybody who can do that. Is it Dylan Bell? Is it somebody smaller? So I think all that's going to be really interesting to see. And that's what makes this Clemson defense against that Georgia offense so intriguing. I think Clemson's strength is up front, right? And in the linebacking core, I think the two cornerbacks, are going to be really good. We've seen what Terrell is, and the safeties are really good. I think this defense is going to be really good this year, and they're going to really get a good test to start the season.
Absolutely. YouTube.com/Clemson Kickoff. Go ahead and subscribe there. Hit that like button. Most importantly, join the conversation. Tell us what you've seen. If you've watched the Clemson spring game, if you've maybe even watched the Georgia spring game, tell us what you see out there. Be part of the community. Add your thoughts. We love to see it, and we try to interact with as many of those comments as we can. Let's go ahead and get to the hardwood real quick. And Clemson, fresh off an Elite Eight performance to close out the season. Couldn't quite get it done there at the end, but some big wins over Arizona, over Baylor, and you see some guys moving on. You see some guys kind of hedging their bets a little bit. Let's get into that. We haven't heard official word out of PJ Hall. We all assume he's gone. Clemson taking a transfer from Cincinnati to play the center position. So it sure seems like they're going to move forward there with him and Shefflin in the front court. They will be losing RJ Godfrey, it would seem. He's in the portal at the very least. I guess he could come back if he looks around and thinks Clemson is better than all his other opportunities. A little bit of a Clemson-Georgia rivalry there, right? With his father having played for Georgia, and you wonder if he ends up taking the trip down to Athens, playing for Michael White down there. And then we're waiting to hear about Chase Hunter, who has chosen to declare for the draft but maintain his eligibility. So we'll see what he learns from the scouts and from agents and everybody else who kind of gives their evaluations and decides, hey, yeah, this is the year for you, or no, you might want another year of seasoning. At which point you wonder, would he consider the portal? You would think he would end up coming back to Clemson if he doesn't go to the NBA. So a lot of movement on this roster. Also, Josh Beadle declaring for the portal. Anybody I'm missing, Daniel? And is this a team that can really take advantage of? You talk about season to season momentum, but you hope that reaching the Elite Eight is kind of a building block for your program at the very least, even if it's not true momentum that you carry from the locker room and on the court. And boy, there's just a lot of movement. Maybe it's not quite yet upheaval, but a lot of movement among the names on this roster, and it makes you wonder. Okay, are they really gonna make sure that Elite Eight is a new keystone or cornerstone to kind of lean on, right?
Yeah, it's hard. I don't freak out about the portal. I hated that RJ Godfrey jumped in the portal. I really liked what he gave this team at the end of the season. I like the athleticism. I like how he plays. He plays hard. He plays smart. He's not a great offensive player, but he was getting better. I mean, he hit 3 in the tournament, made some huge free throws in the tournament. So I hate that. I'd love to see him come back, maybe change his mind and come back, but that's doubtful at this point. How many guys do that? Once they get in the portal, how many change their mind?
Yeah.
But I like Victor Larkin. I think it's a good move to get him from Cincinnati. I like having Scheffler back. Again, we're assuming that Dylan Hunter and Chauncey Wiggins and those guys are going to be back, and we still don't know about Hemingway. So the roster is going to look different. Maybe Chase Hunter's back. Maybe he's not. If you get the Chase Hunter from the NCAA tournament, yeah, you want him back. I mean, that guy, that's as well as a Clemson player has ever played in the NCAA tournament in my lifetime.
Yeah.
I'm not saying better, but that's as well as anybody as a Clemson player has played in the NCAA tournament. That big shot he hit against Arizona at the end where he got bumped and made the 3-point play, made the free throw for the 3-point play. That was as big a moment as Clemson's had in the NCAA tournament in a long time.
Right.
So, you'd love to have him back for sure. Him and Dylan, Chauncey Wiggins, Shefflin. I mean, there's your core. You add Victor Larkin and maybe there's some others out. There's got to be some more transfers out there. The freshman class coming in is supposedly really talented. Now, here's the caveat about that. Brad Brownell has never really played the freshman very much.
True.
Right? And now maybe this group is good enough where it forces his hand. But even PJ Hall didn't play very much as a freshman. Remember, he played 10 minutes a game as a freshman?
Right.
And now you could say, well, he wasn't ready. Well, then maybe this group is ready, but they might have to be ready.
Right.
They didn't have a minute played by a freshman this past year that I know of, unless it was a walk-on. So, and there's a couple other pieces to the puzzle, and we'll see how they fit. But will those freshmen push for time too? Will they go sign somebody else? Who was signed with somebody and maybe they changed their mind. We saw Cam Scott signed with South Carolina after being committed to Texas, or signed with Texas and changed his mind. Now he signed with South Carolina. Maybe Clemson could sign somebody like that, as a freshman. But it feels like it's going to be portal ads at this point, and we just kind of have to wait and see, who they are. Same thing with the women's team. The women have a new coach in Sean Poppy, which I love that hire, by the way. Love it. I saw him up close at Chattanooga in the SoCon from where I live. I think it's a really good hire, but it's going to take time for him to build up that roster.
Yeah. Well, we got to end it there. We are running out of time on our limited budget. So youtube.com/Clemson Kickoff is where you can find us. Also on Twitter @Clemson Kickoff. And we will keep you posted as things break left and right. If any football players hit the portal, we'll sure be letting you know about that. I'm Bill Zimmerman.
I'm Daniel Shirley. Go Tigers.